What's going on, everybody? It's been quite a while since I've checked in with you guys solo. I recently just got back from my kind of kickoff to the season trip out to Montana, and I thought it might be a good time to come on, recap some of the stuff on the trip, kind of give you guys a preview to what's to come, some of the episodes and just adventures that I got into while out there chasing sharp-tails, huns, sage grouse. It was a great trip in a lot of ways. Kind of a lot of bad luck and misfortune outside of the hunting in a lot of ways, which we'll get to, especially throughout some of the episodes that we recorded through there. But first, I'm going to take a minute. I have not done this in quite a while. I need to do a little housekeeping. For those that are kind of joining us for the first time, I don't really do a whole lot of housekeeping on each individual episode. I don't do intros, don't do outros. I kind of keep it, I try to just get to the nuts and bolts of all this. But here in the recent weeks especially, I've received a lot more influx of listeners checking me out for the first time, long-term listeners that weren't even, I don't even know, they weren't even aware of some of the stuff that we have going on behind the scenes outside of just the podcast. So I want to take a minute, touch on that. First off, I want to start off with Patreon. Say thank you to all the Patreon supporters, not just now, but throughout the years. You hear it on other podcasts, and it's true. We would not be doing this specific show, without the support of Patreon patrons. Ultimately, they're paying to support a show that they otherwise get for free, and that's not lost on me. And Patreon is the number one best way to support this show and this channel. So if you're interested, it's patreon.com/gundogyourself. Once you log in, you will notice that there are some discounts throughout. There's a little search tab. If you just go in and you type in discounts, anything with that keyword or tag, it'll pop up and you can get it. There's a few of them going around, hopefully aiming to add some more discounts for Patreon exclusive down the road. But there are discounts for things such as merch, Standing Stone Supply, Marshwear, Fervor, just to name a few. I have, over the past couple weeks, if you haven't seen on social media, I haven't done a whole lot of posts or anything about it, but I recently did just add another puppy to the stable, and I am doing a lot of training videos, not just with him, but with Quinn as well. So if you're interested in kind of seeing some of the training videos and training sessions that I do with my dogs, you can start looking at some of those on Patreon. Zoom rooms, we do those on occasion to where we just kind of get on, talk about whatever's on people's mind, but I'm also trying to incorporate specific topic and specific special guest Zoom rooms. We just recently did one with Chris Armanini of Full Send Canine to follow up on his recent episodes on the Unforced Force Fetch, which got a lot of traction, got a lot of interest, had a lot of questions, and so we recently did a Zoom room to where he joined in and he was able to answer direct questions to the listeners right then and there. So if that intrigues you, I'm looking to do the kind of specific topic special guest Zoom rooms. I'm looking to do those about once a quarter or something like that. Also, there is a hunt with Ethan Pippett of Standing Stone Kennels. Me and him are going to be up in Winter, South Dakota in November chasing pheasants, and if you were a part of Patreon, you would have had first access and a little bit of a discount on the price. We do have a couple slots left on that hunt, so if you're looking at your November schedule, I think it's like the week right before Thanksgiving or leading up to it, if you would like to squeeze in another quick hunt for a few days, then by all means hit the link in the show note. That will take you to the landing page where you can find all the other information on that hunt. But that should be a good time. It's we had a bunch of people initially sign up right off the bat, but we do have a couple slots remaining, and so we're looking to fill those up. So by all means, check out the link. If you have any further questions, then let me know. Another thing to touch on is merchandise. I don't have a ton of merchandise or a big selection by any means, but if you do go to the website, gundogyourself.com, you will see I do have hats, I have stickers, and we do now have some shirts. And so check those out if you want to support the show. It means a lot that people would actually, not only purchase and support the show just by buying the hats and shirts, but actually wearing them and supporting and kind of growing the community. That really means a lot. Another thing we've been doing for the past few months is an email newsletter called the GDIY Bumper. I've had a lot of different writers. It's not just me kind of getting on my soapbox or regurgitating a lot of the same information. I have a lot of friends, other trainers, other writers, just kind of collectively just throwing some stuff and articles out there. But you can also see that we're doing like a special unique item featured by Standing Stone Supply in those newsletters. If you want kind of a little heftier discount on certain items at certain times, that'll be there. It also kind of gives you a preview for the next week's episode, as well as previous episodes and current ones, just to make sure that you don't miss out on anything. A lot of listeners, we've talked about it a little bit more in recent episodes, so hopefully you guys are catching on. It seems like it's starting to grow, but every episode I've done, I think this entire year in 24, is now on YouTube. They've all been video podcasts, so check them out. It's at first it seemed a little weird to me to do podcasts in video format. I personally didn't really kind of recognize how much I would enjoy it at the start, but I had a bunch of listeners requesting it over the years, and so we finally took a jump and just did it, and so far it's starting to catch on. I think a lot of people are starting to enjoy it, so check that out. YouTube, it's under Gundoggy Yourself. Hit subscribe to make sure you catch all future episodes, and engage. Hit that like button, leave comments, questions, whatever. A lot of this stuff, that's one good thing about the YouTube podcast, is it gives me the ability to interact with listeners and engagement. You guys can leave a direct comment based on the conversation or topic that we've had. And then also the people that are watching or listening to this on YouTube, if you're not familiar with all of the content that we've been putting out for years, with this podcast is 5+ years old now, and so episodes outside of YouTube, there's like 200 some odd actual episodes. That's not even including the bonus episodes or profiles. So if you enjoy this content on YouTube, then you might want to check out some of the topics and previous guests and previous series that we've done in audio format. You can find that on any podcast streaming platform, Apple, Spotify, etc. So we've thought about trying to throw in just the audio tracks on all of those episodes onto YouTube, but I haven't decided if that's something we're going to pursue or not. But I wanted to throw that out there, that if you are enjoying this podcast on YouTube, that there's years of interviews and topics that you can explore on just regular audio podcast feeds, if that interests you. So a couple weeks ago, I decided to, really this was a couple months ago now. Anybody that's been listening to the podcast, last year I went on this big kind of western loop and a lot of trips like I kind of do every hunting season, and I purchased a camper, and I was dragging and hauling that camper all around the country, literally all the way to Idaho and back in the North Woods. It did its job. It was fine. It was a camper. Nothing special. It wasn't huge. It wasn't small. It had all the creature comforts that I needed. But I made the decision a couple months ago to sell that camper and to kind of start over from scratch to figure out the my preferred way of handling traveling and hunting and all the fun stuff that we love to do in the fall. I wanted something a little bit more mobile, a little bit more efficient. And so getting rid of the camper, I decided that I was going to try and do like a mobile hunt setup with my own truck. So the camper was gone. I moved onto the truck. I had the B Pro kennel already, so the 3-hole dog box from B Pro is what I was running to have all my dogs travel in. I had a DIY, just, rough constructed drawer system that I honestly really enjoyed and really loved, and it worked great for years. Nothing fancy, just, a basic wooden drawer system with dividers, and it held all my gear the way I wanted to, and it worked great while I had the basic topper on the back of the truck. But with this new kind of setup that I was going for, especially with the B Pro kennel, is I had to take the topper off. I got some Yakima bed racks, and I put a rooftop tent on top of it. And I have a rooftop tent on top of the bed racks, but then I have the B Pro kennel underneath that, and that is sitting on top of a decked drawer system now. I had to switch over from the wood to the deck just because of the weather and elements and stuff like that. Clearly the wooden box wasn't going to hold up. It actually did hold up a number of months, a lot longer than what I anticipated it would, but I pulled it out of the truck and slapped a really fresh, thick coat of nice, good oil paint. So it did help protect it through the bulk of the year for me. But I knew going into this season and this winter, I wanted something a little bit more reliable that could withstand the elements a little bit more. And so I got the deck drawer system. So now I have the deck drawer system with the B Pro on top with a rooftop tent. I got the iCamper BDV system. My buddy Nate Akey kind of recommended this system as I was looking at a whole bunch of different ones. If you've ever Googled rooftop tent systems, there's a million considerations, a million options out there. And ultimately what I wanted was efficiency. I wanted it simple. I didn't want something that I had to spend 15 to 30 minutes packing up every morning. When I'm doing a mobile setup, I wanted it to be truly mobile. And so when I was doing my research, the iCamper BDV system, it comes in a solo size and a duo size, and I ended up getting the duo. And I'm really impressed with it. It truly just, you undo the latches, throw it up, and you're set. And then, conversely, when you're packing it up, it just folds down and you latch it and you're on the road. It takes all of a minute to set it up and maybe 2 minutes to pack it up. So I was really pleased with how efficient that system was for camping. It was comfortable for me to sleep in at night. I actually, on my Garmin watch, it keeps track of your sleep quality and scores. We can debate how much you trust that information at a later date, but just comparing apples to apples, I actually achieved a higher sleep quality score on sleeping in that iCamper system than I do here at home in my own bed. Whether that's from an aspect of it being comfortable, or whether that's an aspect of I was walking my butt off chasing birds and camping and all that stuff, so I was pretty tired. Who knows? But either way, I got really good quality sleep, and I just think it was a game changer, honestly. I'm not the biggest gear junkie out there, but when I come across something that I like that truly works as advertised, as I hoped, as I intended, I like to give credit where credit's due. And the iCamper BDV Duo system is freaking awesome. I have no relationship with them. I've never spoken to them. So this is truly, I paid for it myself, installed it, and I'm just telling you guys, if you are in the market for a rooftop tent, then you might want to go check that out and look at that. Aside from those items, a couple other things that I was sure to throw onto the truck setup is, especially going out west, this isn't really that big of a concern if you're just in the Northwoods or whatnot, but shade, especially during early season. So I went ahead and I bought a 270-degree awning on the side of the truck, which did allow me to put shade on the dogs while they're chained out and staked out while you're taking a long, siesta during the lunch hours when it got too hot to hunt. So that was a huge element to this setup, was the awning. And so, there's a whole bunch of different, I can't even tell you the brand name that I bought. I kind of skimped on this one, to be honest. I kind of got a quote unquote lesser brand, just because I had spent so much money on all the other stuff. I didn't want to spring too much for like a really high grade awning, but even the entry level awning was really nice. It was really easy, set up in a minute, and then, tear down was, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes. So the 270-degree awning, and then also had a road shower, and that was another thing that I quote unquote skimped on. At the end of the day, I was about to kind of construct and build my own out of PVC and painting it black and all that stuff, but after kind of adding up the material list, figuring out how long it was going to take, and then start, trying to predict the holes and the quirks that comes when you do anything DIY like that, is it's going to spring leaks or whatnot. But, by the time you add everything up and the time that it takes, it just made sense to buy one. So I just bought like an entry level. I think it's 8 gallons that it had on it. And I tell you what, I enjoyed that road shower a heck of a lot more than I anticipated. It's Montana's really dusty, so there was a ton of dust out there. It came in handy when I needed to rinse off even the dogs that were riding in the dog box. That is my one critique on this setup was, I love my B Pro box, but it did not prevent any dust from getting in those dog boxes. So by the end of the week, I just felt horrible for the girls that were in the back riding around in that dog box, because they were just coming out just covered in dust. So having pressurized water in that road shower was kind of nice, rinsing them off, refilling water bottles, taking a shower, staying clean while we camp, because ultimately this entire trip I didn't stop or stay in a hotel or Airbnb at all, which was kind of the goal of doing a mobile hunt setup. And so we just bounced around from BLM to BLM to BLM. We really got the full Montana experience, never having to go back into town other than just, for certain supplies when you need gas or something cold to drink or something like that. But there's going to be more talk on the setups in an episode that I did with my buddy Randall Likens from Liberty K9. Him and his brother were in camp with me the whole week, and Randall has his own really special, unique setup, so we kind of go over into mobile hunt setups a little bit more on that episode, so you can look forward to that in future episodes. I also show, and we talk about his setup a little bit more than my own, but his setup is pretty unique. He hauls a little small camper trailer as opposed to just in the truck. So now that I had the setup and everything, there really wasn't any more considerations than what you typically do. But I was hitting the road, and I knew I was getting the new pup that I just mentioned earlier on the way there. This was kind of not a last second thing, but when the urge to get a puppy kind of popped up into my head, it really happened fast. I ended up, by means of a couple friends and suggestions and point in the right direction, I think that I landed on a really good opportunity with a young male setter. He's out of Mud Lake Kennels from Hannah and Kyle Peterson. And I'm having a lot of fun with him now, and we'll get to that more, especially if you're on Patreon. You can see a lot more on him. But traveling with a puppy is always an adventure, especially when you're just picking up a puppy and you're unfamiliar with him. He's unfamiliar with you. You kind of have to prepare for everything that you can without knowing fully what you're getting into. And so simply what I did with him is I just went back and I got one of my old Dakota 283 tonneau cover kennels, and I threw that in the back seat of my truck. And then that way the puppy wasn't subjected to the dust and elements and riding in the back of the truck all the way out to Montana. So I picked him up on the way there. And he pretty much stayed in that kennel the whole time. Not the whole time, obviously. I got him out and did bird dog stuff. We even got him out. He got to do typical puppy walks. He was more interested in grasshoppers for the most part than anything else. But we did manage to find a small group of Huns that he actually did point for a split second. So I got a flash point out of him on Huns that I think he was 3.5 months old when we were out there. So that was pretty cool to see. But aside from the normal kind of hunting setup and all the gear that we take with us and all that other stuff, the puppy was really the only thing that was abnormal that I had to account for on the traveling. And that puppy is freaking awesome. He was already crate trained, pretty much potty trained already. We didn't have a single accident in the kennel out there. Very easy dog, and so that was enjoyable. That setup worked really well for me. So yeah, I had the setup, I had the plan, I kind of knew where I was going, and so I just kind of struck out. I left the house, made it to Minnesota to essentially pick up the puppy, but the night before picking up the puppy, I did link up with my buddy Mike Nadusky from Ugly Dog Hunting. We sat down. If you follow his podcast, you saw that there was an episode that I did of his that already came out, and there's another episode pending with him that's going to come out on this in the coming weeks. It was a really fun conversation. We cover a lot of grounds. We talk. We do a little kind of dream booking, if you will, in terms of like NAVDO. Why do they look at rules this way? Why don't they change that? So we had a little bit of fun with that. So if you're interested in something like that, then by all means you'll catch that in the future weeks if you hit subscribe. So once I left Mike's, I went and picked up the pup, which I don't think I said his name, but we're calling him Woody right now. So I went and picked up Woody, and then we started making our way out west. And I had one more stop to get to before we went to Montana. I did do a stop off. I got invited to check out a horseback trial in western North Dakota on wild birds. And it's not that I have that much interest in the horseback trial game. I don't think that the average person that's getting bird dogs and that they're a little bit younger that's coming into the space, I don't think that they really have all that much interest in that. But I will tell you right now, when you get invited by somebody to go ride horseback on the prairies of North Dakota on wild birds while you watch a pointing dog stretch that horizon, you're a fool if you don't take that opportunity. And I will say I'm not the biggest fan of horseback riding in general. My experiences up until this trip, were very hit or miss, and so that's stories for another day. But essentially, I wanted to go just to get the overall experience riding a horse in the prairies with the dogs running and wild birds. I mean, it just, I'm not the most romantic guy out there when it comes to this stuff, but even that kind of piqued my interest. And so I went and checked that out. And I tell you guys, you need to go see it. It is one of those things in our kind of culture. We are seeing the decline of horseback trials and that horseback culture, that big running dog culture. It's not dying, but it's definitely not trending up. Like you have some diehard people still doing it. Some people are getting into it, but just the barrier for entry is so high when you start adding in horses and trailers and travel and all that stuff. But that's why I'm telling you, like, if you have an interest in checking that out, you need to. I'm not going to sit here and say that the average dog in that environment was really like my preferred style of dog, but it was still pretty damn neat watching those dogs, those big running dogs, stretch out, and just the environment. You had a bunch of guys that, like, this is what they do. From not just the dog perspective, but the horse perspective. Like it really kind of, I don't know. I don't even know the right words to account for it other than you're going to hear a lot more about it on an episode coming up. We kind of had a little roundtable discussion. It'll be interesting. Go into it. And if you have any desire to check that out, I would encourage you to do so sooner rather than later, and then I'll just kind of leave the rest of the recap and experience for the episode that we have coming up. One thing that we did not talk about in that episode, this is kind of the first sign of some poor luck that I had while there. Somebody hit my truck, and whether they realized they hit it or not, they ended up leaving, and we couldn't figure out who did it. But so I do have the passenger side door is dented in pretty decent. So it is one of those things that I'm not obviously not blaming the trial or really anybody there. There's a lot of trailers. I mean, heck, they may not even realize that they hit the truck. But I'm just kind of saying that's kind of the kickoff, the first kind of gut check of some bad luck on this trip. But you prevail, you move on, you leave. I head out from this trial and this experience to head out to Montana. I go link up with my buddy Randall and his brother Corey and their buddy Devin. Link up with them, and it was cool just getting into camp to where it's not trialing, it's not training. I mean, you can argue that it is training always, but for the sake of this episode, I got to camp and it was immediate. My brain just went into we're in hunt mode. That's what we're out here to do. We're out here to develop dogs, grow dogs, and have a damn good time doing it. And shooting a lot of birds. And so we wake up the next morning and immediately go out there. And I mean, I drop Rachel and Lucy on the ground together, kind of let them stretch their legs. And it was just, just half an hour in, boom, here we're on the board with the sharp tail. Rachel and Lucy knocked off the rust. I sat there and watched Rachel. The first run of any hunting trip, I try and tell everybody, like, don't go with too many expectations. Maybe your dogs are different than mine, but I've noticed throughout the years and numerous trips, as many trips as I've gone on, it seems like every first run of a hunting trip, there's rust that we have to knock off. I almost call it a fun run that I kind of expect certain things to blow up. Nothing really blew up on this. I did watch Rachel catch wind of a sharp tail from, I don't know, it was probably 40, 50 yards up, and she was tracking it in, trying to get close, and she got a little too close and bumped it. Did a nice stop to flush, but that rust was knocked off, and she immediately went and pointed another bird. Lucy came in for a nice back, gave me time to walk in there, flush it, and we're on the board with the sharp-tailed grouse. Lucy retrieved it to hand. I got to, take in the moment because, it's the first bird of the trip. You got to savor it, but also it was my first bird that I got to shoot with my brand new Upland Gun Company shotgun, which I'll be talking about that a little bit more later. But so all in all, it was right off the bat, we're into some birds, having some fun. From then we kind of moved out and went and found a new spot. I dropped Quinn on the ground, which is, no knock against Rachel and Lucy. They're kind of my older dogs. I've shot a lot of birds over them. I was chomping at the bit to get Quinn out here. I was really looking forward to dropping Quinn. She's in her sophomore season. There's a lot of ground to cover on this. I was really looking forward to developing her. And, she got out there. She did have kind of a couple bumps on some coveys of Huns, but then she kind of honed it in, tightened it up, and had a nice, real big, staunch, beautiful point out in some wheat stubble right on the edge of some this little swampy slough area, and it was perfect. Randall was out there with me with his Poodle Pointer Creek. He got a nice back end. The birds got up. I shot a double. Both dogs kind of got one retrieve each. It was this kind of textbook riding. And so, I'm on cloud 9. We're kind of making our way back to the truck on that. And then that's when Randall essentially stepped on the first rattlesnake of the trip. This was one... when I was in North Dakota on horse, my horse that I was riding actually stepped on a rattlesnake. But then this one, we were on the ground, and Randall, he was inches away from that rattlesnake. I think he jumped about 20 feet high in the sky once that snake kind of coiled back and started rattling. He took Randall by surprise on that one. during that hunt, this was kind of the second iteration of some bad luck. My tracking collar just crapped the bed on me. At the time, like it didn't really make any sense to me as to why. I looked down and it was shut off. So that's something that, I went into. I did all of the checks. If you're unfamiliar with the tracking collars, I'm talking about the Garmin Alpha specifically in this one, is you have to update the firmware and the software on these collars every single year. It's part of my kind of getting ready to go for the hunting season routine and checklist. And so I did all of that, and everything was fully charged, but I looked down and the collars were just off. So had to start kind of piecemealing that together, figuring out why it shut off. And essentially, long story short on that, because this kind of happened throughout the rest of the trip on and off, is I recognized once it got to about 65 to 70% battery life, the entire system would just shut off on me. And I think it's an actual battery issue. I have not replaced the actual battery since I got it, I think. So I went ahead, I ordered a new battery. I'll let you guys know if that fixes it. I'm pretty sure it will. But for the most part, it made the rest of the trip, once I recognized that, I did a better job of making sure I kept the handheld fully charged. There was really only one other instance towards the very end of, I think it was actually the last walk of the trip, that it failed on me again at a very inopportune time that I would have been able to work Quinn through a certain situation, but I might get to that here in a little bit. But yeah, the collar failed, but again, I'm still on cloud nine. Shot a double of Huns with the new shotgun, so now I'm on the board with a sharp-tailed grouse and 2 Huns without even missing. And I'm sitting here, hey, they talk about get fitted for your shotgun, and so far I'm 3 for 3, and I'm just sitting here, I'm just giddy. I'm just super excited. It's working out great. We move on from there. The other guys pick out a spot on BLM. We go out there. We find ourselves in a sea of sage, and not really sure exactly if the sage grouse are there or not. The other guys, they decided that they wanted to kind of go to some of the ag areas and keep working some of the draws, get into some Huns and sharptails, and I decided to stick around camp where we stopped. Because here's another piece of bad luck. Apparently, one of my tires got gouged at some point driving those roads, whether it was a rock or something metal, who knows, something got it at the right angle. So I didn't want to drive on it too much. I waited till the next morning to change the tire, which is a whole nother story in of itself. But essentially, I didn't want to drive too much further on the road. So where we stopped to make camp, I just decided I was going to go for a walk out into the sage there and see whatever was out there, and just scout around, see if we could find some sign and some droppings from sage grouse. And lo and behold, me and Rachel are out there. It's just us two, and all of a sudden, that tracking collar, which was working again at this point, fully charged, it dings, and I go up there, and she got into a mess of sage grouse, and they were flying everywhere. I took a poke at one that was kind of a bit of a stretch, missed it, and then another one got up, and I smacked him, and Rachel brought it back to me. And I could have gone and shot another one, but, it's one of those, I really like sage grouse, but, I just didn't feel the need to go chasing them any further than that, especially they're such a big bird. That was, between the birds I shot earlier and that sage grouse, that was plenty of meat for me to eat for dinner that night, which we did. We went back to camp, and the guys got there, and we made some hellacious sage grouse tacos. They were freaking awesome. We did them upright with the peppers and onions and all kinds of stuff. That was awesome. So eating the sage grouse while the sun is setting in sage territory, it doesn't get any better than that. The next morning, I get up, the other guys go hunt, and I decide I'm going to hang back, and that's when I'm going to change the tire. And changing the tire shouldn't be that difficult, but when you're in the high plains desert essentially, and there's not really good ground footing, it took a number of different jacks and systems, and all four of us by the time they got back, because every time you start jacking, the dirt would kick out. It's loose footing underneath, and so it was just funny seeing four guys that are completely capable of changing a tire in pretty much every other scenario. It took a combined effort from all four of us to safely get that tire changed, but we did change the tire. Got the old tire, the messed up one, up in the spare section where the spare goes, and I go in, and we're gonna go to another spot, set up camp, get ready to hunt, and lo and behold, the battery is dead. And come to find out, the battery was completely toast. It needed to be replaced. So another piece of bad luck there. It is what it is. After looking at it, the battery that I had in there came from 2019, so I guess I can't be too upset about a 5-year lifespan on a battery. It was just kind of, great timing in that regard. But that being said, between the tire and the battery, I got to use, whether it was a good thing or not, I'm at least glad that I had it. I upgraded my emergency air compressor and battery jumper before this trip. I've always had two different ones in the truck, but I elected to buy a new one that was all in the same housing. So I bought the I can't remember the actual brand, but it's called the Zeus Air, and it's pretty compact when you're talking about that powerful of an air compressor and a battery jumper, and it's like an emergency light. That thing more than paid for itself on this trip. The amount of times that it took me jumping off the battery just to get to town to buy a brand new battery, I think it was like 6 times that I used the jumper. And then the spare tire that I took off, obviously that had to be inflated just for me to get off of BLM land, and it took it like a champ. So if you do not have that in your truck, I've spoken about this throughout the years. I can't tell you how many times I've helped other people jump off their vehicles with that little portable battery jumper. So if you don't have one of those in your truck, and you start going camping or hunting in remote areas that don't have cell phone service and stuff like that, it would behoove you to look into that. And I'm really impressed with the Zeus Air. More than paid for itself. So take that for whatever it's worth. I don't have any relationship with them either. Just another item that I support, and from experience. So take that for whatever it's worth. From then on, it was just really kind of day to day. Stop, hunt, stop, hunt, stop, hunt. You had a mixture of really good stories here, learning curves here. Nothing really of note to talk about too much until a few days later. We got into one area that we talk about this in the episode with Corey and Randall a little bit more. Some of the experiences where we, further bad luck, if you will, but at the same time, I'm the one that bought the German dog. Is the small Munstie Lucy decided to pop her cherry on porcupines. Fortunately, it was not a bad experience on porcupines. We tell the story a little bit more on that episode, so I'll kind of save that. But it was cute. I'll just sum it up as that. She didn't really get all of that porcupine, but she took a sampling of it, and it was enough to really just piss her off and decide that she wanted to go after more porcupines, of which she went and found 2 more porcupines on the same walk, if that tells you anything. So we had a training opportunity on that third porcupine, that if she decides that she wants to go after another porcupine after that, there's really not much there's really not any other tool in my tool belt that can prevent her from going after a porcupine, if you kind of understand what I'm saying there. But yeah, besides that, we got into birds. We shot birds. Quinn did good. Quinn did bad. Rachel was solid throughout the whole trip. Lucy was was Lucy. she had one good hunt, and the rest she kind of dropped the ball on me, to be perfectly honest. At the end of every trip, I like to give kind of report cards and figure out what went good, what went bad, how can we improve it. And all in all, the report cards, I had Rachel down as an A. She's my autopilot dog. She went out, she did what she does. She goes and finds birds. I shoot them, she retrieves them, then she runs off and finds another one. It's just like, it's just business for her almost. Quinn, I gave a B minus. There's a lot of development that I saw from her. A couple quirks, probably more so in the line of retrieving, but there was still a couple other things that I noticed that I came home with some training plans, and I'm actually showing some of them on Patreon as well, just how I'm kind of getting through some of the retrieving quirks of her. At the end of the day, she's an English setter. I'm not expecting her to retrieve like any kind of high level, high class lab or short hair or anything like that. But I do expect a certain level of retrieving from her. So I'm working through that with her. So that's why I gave her a B minus. There was a lot of highlights from her, but there was also some learning experiences, which is to be expected in a dog in her sophomore season. So not to beat up on her, B minus, it was solid. Lucy, I gave a D. It is what it is. I've said on this podcast numerous times, some of my all-time favorite moments of hunting is over that dog, and then some of my lowest moments is behind that dog. And you'll hear some of the Lucy stories in a coming episode. But I think after a certain experience with her, I might just have to rename her Leroy Jenkins, if you understand that reference. As far as the shotgun, I'm going to give that shotgun I was super stoked. If you've listened to this podcast for any extended period of time, you understand I'm not the biggest gear junkie. I'm not a huge shotgun nerd. I've primarily just looked at it as a tool. It's just if it's functional, if it points and shoots, I'm happy with it. But the journey through getting this Upland Gun Company shotgun started a couple years ago when I just had the worst shooting slump of my life, and I went and got fitted, and I got this shotgun. And guys, I'm not over exaggerating when I say when you have a shotgun that is fitted to you, the difference that it makes. Not just from an efficacy standpoint, but ultimately your confidence, which obviously goes into the effectiveness of the shotgun. But the amount of confidence and comfort I was shooting, I don't think that I fully recognize how much I was compensating for an ill-fitting shotgun. I think when I got fitted, I was almost an 1.5 inch difference on just my length of pull. And I think that caused me, that's why I was getting an inconsistent gun mount. And if you're on the fence to getting a gun fitting and getting a new shotgun, I would highly encourage you to reach out to Upland Gun Company. Hit the link in the show notes. Go get fitted and go ahead and get that shotgun on order, because it just, how effective it was and how natural and seamless, and just how it truly may sound corny, but it truly just felt like it was an extension of my body that I was shooting these birds with all week. And those guys are making some really nice stuff. So the shotgun gets an A+. The first day I shot one of each, all three species. I think I missed that one on the sage grouse, but other than that, I connected on all the others, and it was all done with the same exact chokes and the same exact load. So I shot all three species with the 28 gauge with 7.5 shot, 3/4 ounce loads, and that was done with cylinder and improved cylinder fixed chokes on the 28 gauge barrel. So far, if you want to say that I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on the 28 gauge shotgun, fair. I'm drinking that Kool-Aid. Nothing wrong with that Kool-Aid so far. I will keep you updated. I'll be testing that out a lot to come here in the Northwoods, chasing rough grouse, and I honestly just can't wait to put it to the test on that. The truck camping, I gave that overall a B+. The only reason I knocked that down is that, it's camping. There's learning curves and whatnot. But really, ultimately, it just came down to the dust. I think if I figure out a way, I'm going to have to talk to Ben at B Pro. There's got to be a way that I can keep the dust out of the dog boxes a little bit better. Some kind of positive airflow system, something. I'm going to have to talk to him about that. But all in all, the truck setup worked phenomenal, from the tent to the water and all that stuff that I've already spoken about. That worked out and really came well. The hunting overall, I give a B plus, maybe a solid B. A lot of that has nothing to do with Montana, has nothing to do with the bird conditions. I'm a bit stubborn. When I go out west, I picture grandiose grasslands and vast walking experiences. If I can, I'm going to try and avoid hunting adjacent to ag. And that's just me. That's just me being stubborn. I know that there are birds, huns and sharptails specifically, in those little draws and sloughs and creeks coming off of the ag, and even within some of the ag stubble. I understand that they're there. I personally, if I have a choice to where I can go out on some mass land, acreage and cover actual grasslands and find some sharptails, I would rather do that and come across fewer birds just for the experience of it. And this is just me. I'm not saying that this is how you should do it, but I do have a bad habit of sometimes I kind of get into that frame of mind to where I try and go hunt areas where I want to find birds rather than where the birds actually are. And so there were a couple hunts that I kind of worked myself into that situation to where look good from the road. You go out there and it just happened to be overgrazed, and I would have been better and the dogs would have been better off if I actually went to where I know where birds are. But again, me personally, there's something mentally in my head about I don't like being out in the West, out on the prairie, and just being reminded of our impact on the landscape with mass agriculture. There's nothing wrong with it. I understand it. It just is what it is. It's just a personal preference. And so that's why I give the hunting a solid B, maybe B plus, because where I went to where birds should be, the hunting was great. When I was trying to force it and make a square peg fit into a round hole, I was coming across a lot less birds that way. So take that with a grain of salt. The birds were there, but I would personally like to see more opportunities, at least and I spanned a large area in Montana. I didn't stick in one area, but I personally would like to see more vast grasslands that may not be as grazed down as what they are this year. But again, dry year. It is what it is. I personally, I think that I wish there was a way that we could get real-time grazing schedules and calendars, kind of in the same vein as the crop layers on OnX, telling you what type of crop there was, which from my understanding, they're showing you what the crop was the year prior, not the year of. I wish there was a way that we could get more real-time information in terms of which sections of BLM and public land were being grazed and which weren't. I don't think there's anything out in the line of that, but if you're listening to this and you know that there is, please reach out and let me know on that, because I would like to know that going into it, because if I could go avoid agriculture and hunt more, quote unquote, traditional public land, I would personally prefer that, but there's nothing wrong with hunting ag. I went and shot and found a lot of birds close to that, so take that for what it will. Aside from that, once we wrapped up the hunting, I hit the road, came back home. I think it was a 25-hour one-way trip. Drug on a little bit more than what it normally does. I'm no stranger to long road trips, but this one just seemed to take forever. I just drove. There was, when I got tired at a certain point, I found a truck stop and went and pulled in the back, popped open the tent and caught a few hours of sleep, then hit the road and went home. But all in all, great experience. I think the last bit of luck, leaving out of the last hunting spot, we finally hit the main highway, and I had somebody pass me on the road, and they threw up a rock and cracked my windshield. So again, a lot of little bad luck things here and there, but all in all, I mean, the important stuff, the hunting, the dogs, the safety, the good times, everything was great. I had a great trip. I could have done without some of it was like almost all, besides the collar, it was all like centralized around the truck of some sort. And I guess Lucy getting into the porcupine. But other than that, I can't complain. Everybody made it home safe. We had a great time. Shot some birds. Had a great time sharing camp with somebody. There was no drama. Everybody got along great. Everybody hunted well together. A lot of good dog work. Yeah, all in all, it was a great trip. So wanted to just drop in. Again, as I said at the top of this, I haven't really checked in with you guys solo in quite a while. I needed to get some of the housekeeping stuff on, which again, guys, not to beat a dead horse, but I don't come on every podcast episode pitching my stuff. I probably should. It's probably advisable in a lot of ways, but I ultimately want you guys to be able to hit play and just enjoy the conversation. That being said, I still have to pay the bills. So if you're listening to this and you've gotten value out of the show and you're learning something, take a minute, please consider, going online, hit the links in the show notes, and go buy a sticker, go buy a hat, sign up for Patreon, support the show. If you're getting something out of this, then please throw something back in return. It really would mean a lot. And then even if it's not just supporting me, support the companies and the sponsors that help bring this show to you on a weekly basis, sometimes more often than a weekly basis. If you're in the market for any kind of supplies, getting ready for that trip, go hit up Standing Stone Supply. They're great people. They're hunters, they're dog trainers. They understand exactly what it is that we do and what you need. If they don't have something, then let me know or reach out to Ethan, let him know. He's always trying to figure out what he needs to add to the store to make it better. They're great people. Onyx, unless you're living under a bridge, go get Onyx. If you need a code to save 20%, it's GDIY 20. Onyx, I couldn't imagine doing these hunting trips without Onyx. Honestly, now it's, when I first started, I was piecemealing it together with just Google Earth and stuff like that. And you can do it that way, or you can just spend, a little bit amount of money for something that, far outweighs the cost. The value of it far outweighs the cost. So sign up for Onyx and Upland Gun Company. I can't do this show without those three sponsors. And Upland Gun Company, it's just build the shotgun that you'll use for the rest of your life. Build the shotgun that you're going to want to pass on to your children, that's going to want to pass on to your grandchildren, and start getting those family heirlooms back in. I think a lot of people have lost those throughout the years. So get back into that. But then all the other sponsors, Fervor makes a great product. If you need something to help kind of keep your dog active and mobile and recovering fast on a hunting trip, check out Fervor. There's a discount code and a 2-for-1 deal down in the show notes on that. There's a bigger discount on Patreon for it. Sweetbriar Pet Transport. I'm hearing a lot of good experiences in regards to them. They do a great job from my understanding. I personally still haven't used them yet, but I've met them, interviewed them in person. They're great people, and the few people that I've spoken to that actually use them since that episode speak very highly of them. So take that for what it's worth. And then True Lock Choke Tubes. I am really digging the True Lock choke tubes. I hope to have more information on that coming down the pipe your way, but there's a discount code in the show notes for you on that. They guarantee it, so if you are unsatisfied or dissatisfied with the product, they will replace it. They have 100% satisfaction guaranteed, and they have pretty much all of the different options that you could want. If you look at their website, it can be a lot to kind of consume and figure out what you want to order and how to order it. If you have any questions, just hit him up. Scott is a great guy. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he'd be happy to take care of you in terms of the choke tubes. And if you're not going to support the show, support the sponsors that support the show. If anything, support doesn't have to be monetary. Just follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, hit subscribe on YouTube. That goes a long way. Sharing the episodes goes a long way. Just growing the audience size would help us tremendously on this venture, because I want to keep bringing valuable information and content your way. I have a lot of ideas for this show. I would like to get to where I'm doing more episodes, such as the Unforced Force Fetch series that we did, to where I actually have training videos accompanying the actual podcast episodes. So I can't do that without the support of you guys. So, I'm kind of selflessly plugging myself on here because I feel like I haven't done it in forever. And when you have people first finding me on YouTube saying that, they weren't aware of a website or Patreon or something like that, I do need to start kind of plugging this stuff a little bit more. So if you enjoy hit and play on the episodes and you're not met with a big long intro preview to the episode that you already clicked play on, then take a minute and consider signing up for Patreon. I'll stop rambling on and on about that. Hope everybody is off to a great start to the hunting season. Hopefully it's you're having safe and rewarding experiences. You're out there getting it, whatever brings you joy in this process. If it's the dog work, if it's the shooting the birds, if it's the meat, if it's all the above, I hope that everything is coming your way and you're fulfilled. And just stay out there, be safe, and we'll check back here soon with another episode of GDIY. Appreciate it, guys.